this is my favorite thing of the whole thing. So it's a little clapboard.
Oh, wow. That is so awesome.
Yes. So we have.
So official.
Listen, we try our best.
Did you get the thing on Amazon?
Absolutely. Everything on Amazon.
Everything on Amazon.
I want to get one.
Everything on Amazon. You can buy small clapboards, big back clapboards. You could buy
anything you can
dry erase clapboards. You can buy anything on Amazon. So yes, I bought this mic on Amazon. I mean, what are you going to do? It's sponsored. We're sponsored by Amazon. Not really.
Amazon.
Yes.
Not really. Oh my God.
Not really. We wish.
Plug us. Give us free gift cards.
Yeah, for real. So we are joined on 2 Wash-Ups, 1 Pro with a very special Olympic gold medalist, pro Janine Beckie, a Red Raider, Go Tech, Man City. Yeah, is that what it is? Rackham. That's right.
Wreckham. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
A current Man City star, an Olympic Canadian gold medalist. I mean, the list could go on. Thank you so much for joining us in your Jumpman kit. Go Nike as well. Love to see that. How are you doing? What's going on?
Well, thanks for having me. Super happy to be here. I'm good. I think summer's officially over in England. It is
really
gray and rainy, so this is what my life will be for the next 10 months, but you get used to it. So the summer was nice while it lasted, but no more sun for me.
How long does the summer last over there?
Oh gosh, it starts to get like warm at the end of May, and then usually around this time it starts to cool off, so it's not too bad. It's just that I'm never here when it's warm because I'm not here during the summer.
Yep.
So
you get all the gray of England.
I get the winter, which is super fun.
But you're Canadian, but not.
I'm used to it.
You're
I'm used to it.
Coloradan.
Yes.
Colorado.
Which also is intense winter. So
yes,
I really shouldn't complain. I'm used to it. We're good. Everything's good.
Well, hopefully there's a little bit of sunshine left, but we'll see. We want to get right into it in regards to your youth. So let's go back to mini Janine. You were part of the US system, brought in to the 18s, 20s, and then ultimately both your parents are born and raised in Canada. You decide to make the jump to the Canadian side of things. Talk about that. What led you to that decision ultimately, especially being a player that was getting seen at the US level? It wasn't like there was more opportunity. I think obviously you had an opportunity with both countries. Yeah, talk about what led to that decision, and obviously it's paid off, but how did you get onto the Canadian youth national teams and obviously now in the full?
Yeah, well, credit to you guys because you've done your research and you got the story right, because the story has gotten misconstrued many times. Yep. I've lived in Canada. I'm from Canada. No, it's not. That's not true. You guys got it. I love it. So it definitely wasn't for lack of opportunity. I had great opportunity with the US system. I was consistently a face in camps between probably the under 18s and under 20s. And then the under 20 World Cup was coming around the corner, and as you both know, the player pool in the US is just quite massive. And that was, it became pretty clear to me pretty quick that it was stiff competition in the US, and not that that's a bad thing. I think that's why, they're so successful. But for me, I started to think, what's the quickest path to the senior team for me? And that's something that I had in my dreams for my early 20s. Like, it wasn't something I wanted to wait till I was, 25, 26 to get an opportunity to play with the senior team. And it was a few months before the under 20 World Cup, and I just got a phone call from Andrew Olivieri, who was the under 20 Canadian coach at the time. And he just said, "We've been tracking you for a while. We understand you have, the ability to play for Canada. Have you ever thought about it?" And I was like, to be honest, not really. He was like, FIFA rules say you can come participate in a camp with us. And if you're, it's not for you, whatever, you can go back and continue to play for the US. So had some conversations, with my family, with some coaches, and I thought, kind of why not? And so I went up there and really, really enjoyed myself. Felt like I fit in from a soccer perspective, but also from, you know, a human being perspective. I got along really well with the girls, and it was a good path for me. So then I had to, you know, make my decision on what I was going to do for the under 20s, which was already a difficult decision because a lot of my really good friends were on that team at the time. We had a really good group, and it wasn't that I didn't think I could make the team. I just knew that there was probably a solidified spot for me on the Canadian under 20 team, and the under 20 World Cup was what I really wanted to do at the time. So yeah, I think it was Frenchie that was the coach, and then April Heinrich was obviously incredibly involved. So had to have some tough conversations with them. You know, they said, understandably, you know, if you go do this, it makes it that much harder, you know, if you want to come back. And I said, I understand that. So that was a hard decision for me to make. And I have absolutely no animosity towards US soccer. They always treated me very, very well, and they were very respectful when I made the decision to go play in the under 20 World Cup. So yeah, I did that. And then I think it was, so that was in the summer, obviously. And then I think it was November, I made my first senior cap. So it all happened really fast. And yeah, like you said, it's worked out all right for me.
Yeah. That's awesome. Cause that's where, you know, we met, I'm pretty sure, was with the 20s. And I think, at least for me, I'm like, the quicker you can get to where you want to be, the better. And so for me, I was like, you go, girl, like you go get that, go get on the senior team. Like you have that opportunity, which a lot of the players in that youth system where it is so crowded don't have that opportunity. So like, I was like, girl, you go get that, like get it. Cause
well, I mean, too, it's, you have to appreciate like the honesty in your approach, because I feel like it just makes a greater point of like, training is super important, but getting like live game action and training and playing with the best players is very important. And I think it's something that can even relate to people that are making like college decisions. It's like, you can't just go to a school because they want you. It's like, did you think about fit? Do you think about whether you're going to play? Do you think about how you fit in their system? Where would you play? How would you play?
Yeah.
And like, to your point, right, you've been a staple for Canada for a while now. And I can only imagine, like, you would think that like you've gotten even so much experience and even better earlier in your career than maybe you would have learned just sticking with the US kind of system and going that route. It also takes, I mean, credit to you, that takes a lot of guts, because I know like to your point, the story's wrong, right? Like, you grew up in the United States. It's such a small circle. So it's like, you make that decision, you play college in the US, you've played in the NWSL for a while. It's like, you don't know how people are going to take that, or, you know, sometimes it's hard to like block out the noise, but clearly just a really good decision.
I find that interesting that story's misconstrued. I don't know why. Well, why do you think that is?
I think it's sometimes a lack of research. And it's like, I've told the story so many times, and I still like read articles about myself, and I'm like, yeah, that's not true. I did not ever live in Canada. I was not born there. So
you're a Real Colorado kid, right? You play for Real Colorado.
I am. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look in the ECNL records. I mean, look in the ECNL records, reporters. Come on now.
Just dig a little deeper, people. But yeah, I think it's a tough one, because, you know, I grew up in the States, born and raised in Colorado, totally engulfed in the American sports culture. And, you know, I will honestly say, when I was young, it was an American Olympian that I dreamed to be. I dreamed of competing in the Olympics for the US. And it's so strange to say that now, sitting here having won the Olympics with Canada. And, you know, I feel so much pride playing for Canada, and I would never, ever change my decision. But it's strange to think about, because I would have never guessed that this would have been my path. And I think that that's what's so special about and cool about, you know, players having the opportunity to play for different countries. And there was a big story that came out about a bunch of UK born players now playing for Jamaica. And it's just like, it's opportunity, and it's great because it grows the game. It makes teams, you know, better. And Yeah, I am obviously, I love every single second of playing for Canada, so I would never change that. But it was something that I really didn't even think was ever going to be an opportunity.
I also
That's
will
awesome.
say you have kind of this, I feel like, I don't know if it's true, but based on your history, I feel like you take on great challenges. Like even, I mean, Texas Tech, no, I'm saying like Texas Tech, I mean, clearly you love the university. It seems as though publicly it's been an amazing experience, but like, I'm sure you could have went to more of a staple soccer school potentially if you wanted.
Yeah.
And
I think we
decided to
touched on
take
it
a
earlier.
route, took a route that was a little less known and decided, okay, I'm going to make my mark here because this is where I feel I fit best. And that's not an easy decision to make, including the Canada decision, obviously. But I just think that's fascinating that you kind of have gone your own way and not really followed the, I don't want to say the typical way, but I think a lot of us have gone the way of like traditional. Yeah.
Yeah, I think obviously you guys know, but for those that don't necessarily know, college women's soccer, there's those dream schools that everyone wants to go to. Obviously, right. Joe, you got to be involved in such a great program. That's one of them. I had aspirations of playing in North Carolina. I don't know a lot of young people that don't, because it's just one of those places. It's like North Carolina, Stanford, UCLA, like I think Virginia's thrown their name in there. Like there's these big programs. But for me, when I was going through the recruiting process, I think it was a really important, decision to I think one of the biggest things is to go somewhere where you would love to be if you weren't an athlete.
For sure.
And I love the university. It's such a great atmosphere in college town. But I also wanted to go somewhere where I was going to play for my freshman year. And that was really important for me to, I obviously didn't know for sure, but I gave myself a good chance, going to Tech. And the coach there is amazing. We're still super close, but yeah, Mr. Tommy Stone. Shout out to him. I'll tell him to listen to this so that he can hear that. He'll be buzzing to know he was talked about.
Yeah, so my cousin actually coached with him at Clemson.
What a small world.
I know. Can you believe that?
Wow, that's crazy.
Joe, before you get into the next question, I will note though, Texas Tech fans are rowdy. Okay. We played them in the national championship. And I was like, I mean, to be fair, we got the best of them, but it was a really insane game. I was in that arena. Insane. I went to the game.
You went? Oh my gosh.
I went. I was like, this is like I mean, these fans don't play.
Another level.
They don't play. If you don't know about they do
Patty
not play
Mahomes.
at Texas
Patty
Tech.
Mahomes went there too, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we were at Tech at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't play. They don't play in Texas, especially Texas Tech. People don't know that. I feel like it's like
don't mess with Texas in general. But Texas Tech fans are like
cray. Like I was like, I'm a little scared getting out of here. Yeah, they bleed it.
I love that. So you crush it at Tech. You wrecked them.
Thank you.
Then you wrecked. I got the hand signal.
Surprised like this is still loud, but
it's one finger. It's one finger.
Yep,
okay, it's one finger. Just one
Joe.
finger, not two. One finger. Okay, one finger. You wrecked them.
Get it right, girl.
I know. Sorry. And then you were drafted by Houston in the NWSL, traded later to Sky Blue during the dismal season of Sky Blue. You then mid-season, went over to Man City. Talk a little bit about the decision to leave the NWSL, and then talk about Man City. I can't even imagine playing for Man City.
Yeah, it's not a bad place to be. I loved playing in the NWSL. I think it was a big staple in the beginning of my professional career, and definitely somewhere that I want to come back to at some point. And I love to see the growth that the game is having over there. There's a lot of exciting cities coming into the league, which hopefully, all goes smoothly and can really help the league out a lot. And I hope to see more internationals come to the league, because it just keeps getting better, right? And I think the more transfers you can have between leagues, it's better for everybody. It's better for the game in general, excuse me. And so not the best season at Sky Blue. I think that's pretty widely known now. I didn't win a single game with them, which is a hard reality to face, but yeah, it was one of those things that I look back on my time at Sky Blue and I'm really thankful for the experience that I had because I learned a lot. We had a really good group of girls. It just was such a weird situation. And I'm actually quite surprised that we were not more successful than we were on the field because we had some really good players. But yeah, I had talked to my agent just that I wanted to go overseas at some point. I was never really ready to take the plunge and make a move because I knew it was going to be such a big life change, and I wanted it to be as close to the perfect situation as possible, although we all know that doesn't exist, especially, in sports. But yeah, so it actually is a pretty wild story. So this was August 2018, of 2018. Right? Yeah,
I wrote it down. It was August 8th.
She does some good.
Look at you. Research. You are just.
I know. I try to go based off memory and a little bit of Google and put it all together.
Well, you're killing it. So this was the very end of the summer transfer window, and I had no aspirations of going anywhere so soon. I thought, I'll finish the season here and then, figure out where to go from there. And obviously in the NWS have quite a significant off season. So I was definitely not expecting to jump right into a season. But my agent called me one day and he was like, this is going to sound kind of crazy, but Man City's looking for a forward. They think one of their players is going to leave, but they need a decision by tomorrow. And I was like,
you're like, am I back in college?
As in like tomorrow? And he was like, yeah, I know, like, that's crazy, but here's all these things. And I'm just like, well, let me call my mom. So
yep. We shout out moms. We shout out moms on this podcast.
I'm going to Europe tomorrow.
I'm moving across the world. So I call her and I'm like, I really think that I should do this. And I don't feel any anxiety about it. Like, I just think it's the right thing to do, which I'm not an anxiety ridden person, but I'm a very careful person. And I try not to make decisions based on, what's it called?
A rash decision.
Motion.
Yeah, like
just like
irrational decisions.
Motion.
Yeah, just like I like to take my time and think things through, but I did not have time for that. So I'm like, well, she's like, well, if you want to do it, I'm on board, which is totally my mom. Like, make your own decisions. You'll suffer the consequences if it doesn't go well. And I'm like, love you too. And so she was like, but yeah, do it. And so I called him back and I was like, tell them I'm interested. And the same day I got on the phone with the coach, which at that time was Nick Cushing. He actually coaches in the MLS right now, which is cool. And had a bit of a nightmare getting the transfer to go through just because it was like the weekend and no one's in the WSL office on the weekend. So then it's coming down to the wire and I'm like, we've not gotten the approval. The transfer window closes in 2 days. That's when I was like anxiety central. And at that point, my teammates knew that the transfer was in the works. And that was, I think, kind of difficult for them to know that, like, in the midst of having this really difficult season, I was like trying to leave. And so I was trying to have those conversations with teammates and like, that's never easy. But yeah, it was a really wild week. Obviously it all ended up fine and we got the contract signed. So I think between him, my agent letting me know they were interested in me signing the contract was like 6 days. And then 2 weeks later I was here.
Wow.
That's insane.
So
I'm sorry. I just can't get over you saying that the NWSL offices were closed 2 days before the window was closed.
It was like a weekend and we were having the hardest time getting a hold of anyone at the office and we just needed like one signature.
You're like, I get every other weekend, but like transfer window closes in like 48 hours.
Can I get someone's cell phone number? Yeah, like I'm just trying to go.
Oh my God, I wish I could say I'm surprised, but I'm not. Like, what?
I would hope that 3 years later they have not had that same issue. It's all a learning process.
It is. It's a growing pains.
Yeah. So being here is incredible. When I came over, I had only signed a 1-year deal because my thought process coming over here was I want to be in the best environment to train for the 2019 World Cup and be at the top of my game, which it was a difficult year. I moved over here not knowing a single person, didn't know anyone on the team, obviously. I had found my own apartment, but didn't have any furniture. So I'm literally like staying at the facility for my first week. And then I had to fly back for a CONCACAF tournament that was like a month. So I was here for a week and then gone for a month. And then I came back and the same thing happened. I was here for 10 days and then gone again for international break. So my first 3 months was, I don't even remember it because it was just like travel. But yeah, so first year was difficult. I decided to stick with it and use the option that was on my contract for a second year. My second year was completely unexpected. One of my good friends, who isn't on my team anymore, but tore ACL in one of the first games of the season. We didn't have a right fullback. And so don't know why, but I was the next best option. So I played fullback for pretty much my entire second season. Not a defender. Joe knows I'm not a defender.
No.
I was like, well,
you put goals in the back of the net. You don't stop goals from going.
I don't keep them out. I put them in. So it's such a good experience. I really enjoyed that year. And then we got a new coach last year. Again, was another transition. Barely missed out on winning the league title. And then, throw COVID in there, and that made things pretty crazy. And we've had a bit of a rough beginning to this season, but it's a long season. So but I'm so excited to still be here. It's an insane club to be a part of. And just being completely engulfed in the football culture. We get to go to the men's games, which is pretty amazing. So I really can't complain. I have no complaints. It's such a great club. I love being here, and hopefully if the season goes well, I'll see myself here for a while longer.
Yeah. I'm just curious, can you briefly touch on like facilities, all that? Would you say, are you guys kind of a lot of the same, all the resources that the men get, or is there kind of a big disparity, or how does that work?
I would not say there's a big disparity. Have you seen let's plug Amazon again. Have you seen the Amazon All or Nothing that they did on the men's team?
I have. And then I saw a picture with you. It kind of was weird because you're like famous, but like, it was like, I saw a picture with you with the president, and I was like, oh my God, she's with the president of Man City. But then like it all, you know what I mean? It's just so weird to like see them on that and then see how cool. Like,
yeah, they did a really, really good job with that documentary, and it very much is true. That's really how things are for them, more so than us. But we're in the same facility, but as you've probably seen in the documentary, the building is a circle. So the men's first team side is one side of the building, and then our side along with the academy. So we share a lot of most of our facility with the boys academy. So the elite development squad, which is under 23s, and then the younger boys teams. And then in normal times, there's girls academy teams in there as well, but the younger ones aren't in the building right now because of COVID. But yeah, I mean, the pitches are insane. So we have our own pitch. So at the back of the facility, great. The men have their own pitches, the academy teams have theirs, so there's not anyone like ever ripping up our field, which is really nice.
That's awesome.
And then we have our own stadium that's on the ground, which is great. So we literally walk across the street from our facility and we're at our stadium, which is so nice. We're so lucky. Wow. And then I mean, in terms of like access to whatever we need, if there is something on the men's first team side that we're in really like a lot of need of, like they have a cryotherapy chamber over there that we use on occasion. Yeah, it's really, really cool. They have I'm gonna botch this word, but I
probably won't even know what it is.
Hyperbaric chamber or something like that. Where you can change the like altitude and heat and all of that. So when we have injuries, they take our players over there to do their rehab and do that, change the atmosphere and everything, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, like anything and everything we could need, we have access to if we need it, which is fantastic. And then what I found really cool is that there is a lot of the men's first team players that are really interested in what's going on our team. And awesome. we don't have a lot of overlap with them just because their schedule's insane and we're not normally in the building at the same time. But on occasion, some appearances, we cross paths with them, and they're great guys and are super interested in what's going on, on our team. So yeah, it's been a really good experience.
That's exactly what you want to hear.
Yeah, this strictly supports my theory that like from just like a financial standpoint, it's not shocking the best facilities in the NWSL typically are owners that own an MLS team and like in Houston or in Orlando or I just think it's so critical because then you can share a lot or like maintain a lot and it's at a lower cost versus like one owner taking on like, which we're repairing, to be fair, we're getting more, small minority owners into the league, which is great. But it's amazing to hear that on the international scale, because you would think that these clubs would have teams established for the women, and it's kind of a newer thing. So to see that they're going about it in the right way and not kind of starting you at the bottom is really, really cool. So getting into kind of these topics, because I will tell you, Janine Beckie is a great Twitter follow.
Thank you. Wow, that is so nice to hear.
Very good Twitter follow. And I'm not one to plug Twitter, but like, you're a great Twitter follower.
Oh, thank you.
So I went into the weeds myself, Joe. I did a little research.
Very nice.
Go on. Well done.
I'm also, me and Joe are really, a lot of why we're doing this is we're also very motivated and inspired by what we can do and impact the women's game. And I know you're very driven by that. So I know Common Goal just announced that you're donating 1% of your salary, which I mean, let's just be real. Like, we're not making millions of dollars, and like, for you to make that pledge and make that a priority, just so people understand, that supports gender equality, women's empowerment. And I think that's just really like a really awesome approach. I also think you're somebody, out of the women that are leaders in women's soccer, internationally, you do step out. And I think that's really challenging to do, which is why I'm talking about your Twitter kind of following. What made you so passionate about social change? Why have you decided to take that choice? Because I do think there's ways to impact and maybe do it in a way that you don't have to kind of be vocal publicly. But I found, especially following you and kind of reading through your stuff, I think it's amazing what you're talking to and holding people accountable for. So talk us through kind of how you've grown into that kind of leader off the field, and why it's so important to you.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, first off, Common Goal is just an amazing organization, and they make it so easy to want to be a part of it, because they support so many amazing foundations. They've got such a good group of players, and their motto, the reason they exist, is so much about what I believe in, which is giving back. And being able to do that with my salary seems like a big pledge because it's financial, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, if this is something that's going to help continue to grow the game and give people opportunity, then it's just like a no-brainer for me. And what's so cool about Common Goal is that you can actually change your pledge every year. So like who you give it to. So you're able to support multiple organizations over the course of however many years you decide to be a member, which is awesome. It's not like you pick one organization and you're stuck in there. And you can also divvy up a percentage of whatever you're giving to different organizations, which is really amazing as well. And we decided as a national team that we were going to kind of do it as a team. So there's lots of us that have joined Common Goal. But in terms of myself, publicly, I just think it's just so important to use our platform. And I look around and I see, all these athletes around the world, not just, soccer players, but these athletes that have a bit of a wasted platform. And I just think that there's really no excuse for that. And it would be hard for me to believe that there's not a single thing that some of those people are passionate about. And if it's me, sitting on my couch writing a tweet about something that I just have an opinion on, and that sparks a conversation, and then something comes out of that, well, how hard was that for me to do? I'm sitting on my couch, like reading news that, to put it blankly, really pisses me off. And then I can start a conversation with, typing a couple of words. So I just think there's really no excuse to not use your platform. It's not hard. It doesn't take a lot of time. And, even if it did, it's something that you're passionate about. And, it is a bit of when I look at myself, and, the NWSL is a league that I want to return to at some point. So, those topics in particular, at the same time, I'm thinking about myself and a place that I want to come back to. And I left the league saying, I hope to come back to this league when it's in a better place. And that doesn't mean that I can't support it while I'm not playing in it. So yeah, and then I just think in terms of, being bold to step out and say what you want. That's the beauty of social media, and that's the beauty of, the world that we live in right now. We're allowed to say what we want and given a voice. And I'm very, very blessed to have as many people follow me that they do. So I do have great visibility, and I want to use that to be a positive light, but at the same time, like you said, hold people accountable and start conversations and point out things that, I think women specifically have settled for too long, that's just not where we're at anymore. And it's so important to highlight those things. And it doesn't mean that my Twitter is going to make a huge change, but it starts conversations. And I think that's what's most important is, doing something like this, just talking to each other about similar beliefs and different opinions, all the same.
I think that's awesome because you were kind of the forefront of, I was on the way. So we have no Wi-Fi in my college office for some reason. It's down. So I had to drive back to my apartment to do the pod. And on the way back, I was listening to the Barstool's CEO's podcast. And she always does like a headlining news. And one of her headlining news was like the NWSL having their championship. She brought it up at 9 a.m. at Providence Park on turf. And I'm like, okay, that's really cool because I'm about to go interview the person who was probably one of the lead people on bringing light to that. And that, like, for me, like when I thought about that, I'm like, for you to still actively participate in wanting to grow the NWSL is something that I think is really important. Although you're not in it currently, you have been it, you're vocal about wanting to be back in it. It's so important that although the players that may be playing in it have a voice, but others around have to speak up, because if other people around, it's not just the women in the league, it's women outside of the league. Mm-hmm. And I think that was awesome that you spoke up and were so,
do you feel more empowered? Do you feel more empowered now that you're out of the league? Because me and Joanna talk about this a lot. I think the hard part is because of where the league sits financially and kind of, frankly, how a lot of these women really don't have much to stand on when it comes to, like, most girls are not making much. They're working multiple jobs. I think constantly people are in fear of like something.
You can't risk anything.
Something publicly affecting them. Do you think because you don't really have a stake in, I think US Soccer obviously has a stake in NWSL and you're a Canadian player and now currently not in the league. Do you feel like maybe you feel more of a sense of responsibility to speak out more now, knowing that maybe there are players that do have very similar opinions to you, but maybe you're in fear of kind of putting them out publicly?
I think it's tough because, I've been in that situation in many environments. Like there are issues wherever you go, right? Things you can talk about wherever you go. It's the same story on the national team. It's the same story at City. Like nothing's ever perfect. And there's always something that you can speak about. But yeah, I think you have to have that in the back of your mind when you're about to speak about your own team or your own league, and to risk bad press and bad PR for your team, your league, your national team. You have to take that into consideration and go through the process of, what are the implications of this? What is the truth behind what I'm saying? Can it be backed up? Like there's a process through going through these things. And I went through the same thing writing that tweet about the NWSL, but it's like you put yourself in that situation. Anyone that's ever played, anyone that's ever had to get up early in the morning. Like,
yes,
you're like, when is pregame meal? 5:30?
5 a.m.
It was the same thing at the Olympics because the gold medal game was scheduled for 11 a.m. kickoff. And we're all like, what? Like 11 a.m. One, it's going to be horrifically hot, and two, no other game in the entire games was scheduled for 11 a.m. And we're just like, what's the deal?
Like
and
the most important game.
Yeah, like, and anyways, that was, great that they were so open to changing that, and logistically it all worked out. It was fantastic how fast they jumped on that. But that's just it just goes to show there's not enough thought that goes through these decisions. And so when you go through the process of all of those things, when you're involved, it's one, you have to be okay with potential backlash, which is always a risk. But I feel like when you do it, you build up a bit of a wall for criticism, because it's not like I'm just going out and speaking about something that, one, I don't believe in, or two, there's not truth behind, or three, there's not other people that will back my opinion.
Yep.
And you'll always have the people. There is always the people that come out of the woodwork. Well, it's about TV rights and college football and like all these things. And I'm like, the more excuses you make, the more you're just proving my point, which is that I'm not talking about it has to be above anything else. We're talking about visibility and growth of the women's game and investment. And if you're investing in it, you find a way to put it in prime time. CBS, I guess, has the rights. I even said it on the tweet. I don't have the details. It's just the fact that it was scheduled at 9 a.m. is the only thing that matters.
It just should never happen.
And at the end of the day, we all want visibility. We all want all of that, but the number one priority is the players. And no player should have to prepare to play a final at 9 a.m.
No.
And I was saying to some of my teammates here, because they don't know as much to how it works in the NWSL. So for us, like the very beginning of the season, we have 4 trophies to compete for. So we have the Champions League, the league title, the League Cup, and the FA Cup. So we have 4 potential finals. In the NWSL, there's one. So you're talking about the championship game of the entire season. The
10-month season this year. 10 months.
10-month season, and you're playing that entire season for one game, and that game is at 9 a.m. Like, it's just like, really, it just doesn't, I just don't understand how that doesn't make it penetrate someone's brain enough to say this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So that we got a bit off track there. But to answer your question, I think you always risk something coming back when you choose to share an opinion. But as long as you think through it and get the facts straight, that's the other thing. If you're talking a bunch of BS,
it'll always come out. And I think, to your point, and Joe, I'll let you get to the next question, but it's just, I think the most disheartening part for me this year as a fan, as a former player, is just like, we've had such poor press, and a lot of it has come out because no one spoke up. And nobody in the league, which it's not the player's responsibility, it's the league's responsibility to highlight what is going wrong. And I think a lot of times we're backtracking. We're trying to like fix something that went wrong 6 months ago instead of addressing it 6 months ago. And then it's just a crapshoot. And it's sad to me, and I know Joanna feels the same way. It's like, I don't want to keep hearing headline stories on major media outlets about negative. It's never about what you guys are doing positively. It's always like, oh my God, there's another scandal. The 4th coach in the league has to be terminated for cause because we didn't address this.
Know.
Yeah.
And it's just,
no one knows why.
Nobody knows why either. And it just goes, it's blown under the rug.
Yeah.
But, okay. To the big Mama Jamma.
Oh God.
You are an Olympic gold medalist. After back-to-back Canada having back-to-back bronze medal wins, you are finally a gold medalist. I have so many questions. 1, where do you keep it? And 2, when that whistle blew, what in the world went through your head?
It's funny you just said that, and I just got chills again. Currently, someone asked me this question earlier today. It's so funny, the questions that people ask. Like, you go through you think, oh, what would I ask someone if they won a gold medal? And you never think, like, I would never think, oh, I would ask them where they keep it, but I probably would. Yeah. It's just a really funny question. Right now, it's like, saying this publicly, it's like hidden behind some books on one of my shelves. It's in a little box, but I don't have a space for it or anything. So I'm like, if someone came in here,
you're not just wearing it 24/7 in the shower when you go to bed.
I did for a while, and then I thought, this is,
your neck was hurting. You were getting a neck strain.
It's never going to fade in my mind, but other people might start to get annoyed by this. So yeah, it's pushed behind some books right now, but I definitely am going to find a better place for it. But currently, that's where that is. And then your second question, when the whistle blew, oh gosh, it was just, that was probably the most anxiety ridden.
Yeah, it was insane.
Well, we'll just put it down to the penalties. What did that take? Like maybe 10 minutes total. And I've never felt heartbreak and elation so many times in a span of 10 minutes. I could have slept for probably 3 days just from that experience, and then add everything else on there. And it was like, I can't even describe it. Wild. But yeah, I mean, I think it was just one of those things, like, I thought, oh my gosh, we've lost. And then, oh my gosh, we're back in it, like 4 different times. And thankfully, I've not spent a lot of time in my career not on the pitch during penalty shootouts, and I found myself in that situation twice in this tournament. And I must say, I much prefer being on the field because it is a lot less stressful. And I don't know why, because you stand up there at halfway and it feels really stressful. But then when you're on the sideline and you can't do anything about it, it's even worse. So I'm like, oh, you guys just get it done. And thankfully, Steph Labbe is a hero. And just
unsung hero. Had a hell
just
of a
saves everything. Just saves everything. So yeah, I mean, it was like the stars were aligned, the perfect storm of so many things happening for us. And yeah, I mean, it's an incredible experience, and yeah, something I'll never forget for sure.
Joe, this makes me think that we had Shalene on a couple months ago, and we got really into the whole kind of concept around like US and Canada, like kind of them treating you like a little brother, a little sister, if you want to call it. And of course, we're both Americans, so we do support USA, but just like being fans of soccer and seeing Sink kind of get that like moment for herself and her country, and just the elation and the performance you guys pulled off. I know for myself, like wanting to see the game progress, it was like this underdog story that was just so amazing. And so it was so funny because she was just talking about the experience of every game you guys go into the US. It's like this amped, like you guys want to go out there and like prove it. And to finally get it in that like big tournament stage. If you're a soccer fan alone, it was just an incredible experience as a fan. I mean, me and Joe were like texting each other like, oh my God, this is insane.
You know what's so funny about you saying that is it's true. Like every time we play the US, it's a bigger deal than other games. And I think we were careful to say that for so long because it's like, oh, it shouldn't be bigger than any other game. But that's the reality. Like it's a rivalry. They've held the number one spot for a long time. Everyone wants to knock them off, blah, 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 all the things that everyone knows. And it was just strange because I think we approached this game in almost the opposite mindset. Like it's just another game. It's just another team in the way of us getting where we want to go. And everyone just like so bought into that. And there was just this feeling of complete, like just calm. And we know exactly what we're going to do. We know our game plan. We know how they can be exploited. We know how they could exploit us. And it was just like everyone knew exactly what they needed to do to make that happen. And that was the first time against the US where I felt like, wow, we're actually better than them in this game.
Yeah.
And not to say they
sure.
didn't put us under the knife for a while. They served our box for about 20 minutes straight. And I was like, can we get it in our own half, please? But that's the way tournaments work. And we won because we don't give away goals. And that's the most important thing is, keeping clean sheets and
which is
defending
very
for your life
against the US.
Yeah. When you start whoever they started, and then you see, Alex Morgan, Megan Rapinoe, Kristen Press all getting ready to come on, and you're like, okay,
like it's been 75 minutes.
I'm tired. They have fresh legs, and they're some of the best players in the world. So yeah, I mean, it goes without saying, we have massive respect for the US, and the rivalry is so healthy and it's so great. And I think, to be honest, I think that they now, have to give us some respect that probably wasn't there before. So it's not a bad thing. Makes the rivalry even more fiery. So definitely excited for the next time we get to play them.
Yeah, I think it's really cool too, because that Canada roster was kind of that core of like a lot of girls that were super, super successful in the college game. So like Quinn, Jessie Fleming, Prince, like a lot of those girls were very, very successful in college and was kind of around our age group. So it's cool to see behind the scenes that like the youth teams were successful. The 17s were successful, the 20s were successful, and it's just a slow climb. Whereas all of a sudden you may think that Canada's all of a sudden on top, but it's like, this has been a grind for the past 7 years to develop this team into a gold medal. And then you just couple that with Sink and some of the old heads and bada bing, bada boom.
She's literally timeless. I'm like, this girl.
She's timeless.
Literally her game just gets better. She adjusts. I'm like, what the hell? Like,
I don't think that anyone maybe like Messi and Ronaldo, but other than that, I just don't think that the GOAT describes anyone else better than her. So
For sure.
yeah, she's unreal, and it's just so funny because she's just the like most goofy, funny, humble human being you'll ever meet, and then she's just like this. It's like she has a second identity when she's on the field, and it's just like, do not mess with me. I mean, she terrifies me, and we're on the same team, so it's it happens. We're good, everything's good. But yeah, she's incredible, and to be able to, I don't know what the plan is for her in terms of internationally. I more than anything hope she continues to play, but at the same time, we'll completely understand if she wants to hang up the boots with a gold medal, because there's not many other ways to go out. But yeah, I mean, we have a great team, and I think we just have a team of a lot of really good players, and that is hard to deal with when you're the other team.
Obviously, like the peak, I would think, of your career, or at least one of the greatest points of your career, obviously was this summer. But to kind of like end it today, we wanted to also talk to you about, because you're just so insightful, and I feel like you'd have great advice on this. Despite all the success and having played in a lot of teams, started for a lot of teams, we wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the adversity you've hit in your career, and advice that you would have for anybody navigating disappointment, and looking to turn that moment of disappointment into an opportunity to kind of look towards the future and say, okay, I didn't get this opportunity, but there's things still for me to go after. So I think people probably don't even know this, but you didn't make the 2015 World Cup roster, which, looking at your career now, I actually had to check with Joe, because I was like, my memory didn't, but obviously it's clear you took that kind of point of disappointment and it didn't deter you, right? Your goals stayed the same. You kept pursuing your career and getting better. Talk through that process, and like any advice you'd have for players that are maybe in those moments or will face those moments and need to find kind of the other side of it, right? Not focus too much on the moment.
I think if you take a batch of, some of the best players in the world, or players that have, like me, been successful on the international stage, still have a lot to go, but, have done some good things, you'd be surprised to find that most people will have had an experience like me, where, I'm still dealing with that. I don't start every game. I don't play all the minutes here. Do I want to? Absolutely. Who wouldn't? But I didn't make that team. And at the time, that was complete devastation, and everything's easier to look back with hindsight. Hindsight's a beautiful thing. So glad that it exists, because what would we do without it? But
I don't know. I don't know what I would do.
Looking back on that experience, what was said to me at the time is, we just don't think you're ready. And that's a hard pill for anyone to swallow, and a hard pill for a young person who's just spent, back then we did residency, so spent 5 months of two-a-days living in Vancouver, away from, at the time, being with my teammates back at school. And then all of a sudden, everything that you've quote worked for is just like, no, you won't be there. And it's one of those things that I think my advice would be, you have to be so clear about what you're doing and why you're doing it. Because if you're not clear on the purpose behind something, your actions aren't going to follow that. So we used to say on the national team all the time, like, see it, say it, do it, which sounds really cliche, but cliches are cliche for a reason, because they like make sense, right? So, and that was the same thing with our tournament this summer. We said we want to change the color of the medal. And then we went and we did it. And there's so much power behind committing something to yourself, committing something to a group, to a bigger, whatever, community, whatever you want to call it, and then actually following through on your intentions. And so for me, I went into residency, and my goal was to make the World Cup roster. But then what do you do when that reality is all of a sudden crushed? Well, it's okay, what's next? And everyone has their moments I cried, I was pissed, like it didn't make sense. I probably, said some not very nice things about how I was feeling, and everyone has to go through that process. It's not just like, we're human beings, we have emotions. It's not just like you can switch and be like, okay, like what's next? I'm ready. And thankfully that summer was the 2015 Pan Am Games, and they had, followed my cut from the roster with, you'll be a really important player for this tournament. We want you to be there. We want you to enjoy the experience. And, this isn't going to be the end of the road for you with the national team. But at the same time, it very well could have been if I said I don't want to do this anymore. And for me, my purpose was just really clear. It's what I wanted to do. I wanted to play in the World Cup was my dream. And thankfully, again, the way the schedule works, in another year, I had a chance to make another roster. And so from the minute that I got cut to the minute that I found out I was on the Olympic roster, it was, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I don't feel this way again. And thankfully, I haven't felt that way again in my career. Let's hope that I don't feel that way again before I decide to retire. But yeah, I just think like my advice would be, adversity is just a part of life, and challenge and disappointment, like people are disappointing. People are going to disappoint you. Circumstance is going to disappoint you. It's just the way that the world works. And if you have a, pessimistic mindset of, well, I'm doomed, there's disappointment ahead of me, which is probably not going to be a very fun, happy person, are you? But I'm so lucky I get to kick a ball around a field for my job. So, when I try and shift my perspective to think about it that way, the small disappointments that come along the way that just don't seem as big. And it's easy to say when things are going well, I'm off the back of a gold medal, and that's fantastic. But I also, like I just said, I'm dealing with trying to, make my spot in the team every week. And it's just constant. Like, that's just the way that life works. And I'm so thankful to have had that experience at such a young age, because I've learned, but I continue to learn. I don't handle things the right way all the time. Like, I just think you have to, that's a lot of words, but in summary, be optimistic, understand the challenge is coming, whatever form it comes in, might be big, might be small. Disappointment will happen, especially in sport, but be grateful, be joyful in what you do. Try and be clear on your purpose as much as possible. And I will always say, being a good person comes back around. Always be a good person, because even when you don't want to be, which everyone has those days, pushing through and putting a smile on your face and making someone around you feel good always pays off. And I think that's what I try and emulate every day.
That you just pretty much, what a way to end a freaking podcast. I mean, in those 50 minutes, you just dropped wisdom, experience, maturation, everything under the sun. That I can't wait for people to listen to this. This is truly incredible. But something we like to do to kind of end things is a little bit of a rapid fire, just to kind of get to know Janine. Yeah. Okay.
Let's do it.
Favorite coffee drink?
Oh God. Coming in with a coffee is, if anybody knows me, I'm going to answer this question not rapidly. I used to hate coffee. I was like, this tastes disgusting. Why do people like this? And then I was having a really hard time with jet lag, and I was like forcing it down. And I was like, you know what? This stuff works. And then the more I drank it, the more I started to like it. So answer your question, iced Americano with oat milk is my favorite.
An iced Americano, I'll have to try that. Sometimes
with a little bit of vanilla if I'm feeling wild.
Okay. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Bubbly, dedicated, fun.
Love it. Your favorite team to play?
Ooh. I love when we play Chelsea. I love playing Chelsea at the club level. Internationally, I love playing Brazil. We always play really, really well against Brazil.
Yeah, y'all do. Your current favorite takeout?
Indian food.
Like heck yeah.
Yeah, like a butter chicken with a good naan bread.
Yeah.
Wow.
Doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah. Television show you've recently binged?
This is so embarrassing. For the second time, watching Vampire Diaries.
Nice.
Okay.
Always a good one. And your current favorite teammate, they could have bought you coffee. They could have picked you up for practice.
Oh gosh, it's a hard
Could
question.
have bought you a drink after the Olympic party.
All right, we'll go national team and city. One of my favorite people in the universe is Jessie Fleming. She's one of my closest friends. Makes me laugh. We were on FaceTime last night. She's just an absolute goof. Love her. Oh, God, I love all my teammates. This is a hard question. Ellie Roebuck, who is a goalkeeper for England and our goalkeeper at City, literally moved in across the street from me this year. And so we spend a lot of time together. She has a key to my apartment. I have a key to hers. Sometimes she just shows up. So that's been really, really fun to hang out with her more. And I was just with her. She was getting the Olympic rings tattooed on her arm, and I went with her. So that was cool. She was probably the teammate I was just with. So
yeah, perfect. Well, Janine, thank you so much for joining us on this pod. This was awesome.
Of course. Thank you guys so much for having me.
What a great podcast with Janine Beckie. Such a leader in our sport and truly incredible soccer player, a gold medalist. She dropped some serious knowledge out there. So hope you guys just enjoyed it. Next week on the pod, we have Dr. Brad Miller, founder of Soccer Resilience. He really dives into all the tips and tricks on how to handle the mental side of the game. He really goes into it, and it's super exciting, and we can't wait for you guys to listen to it and to learn from it. So we'll see you next week.